So this is a bit of a weird one, simply because I'm not sure exactly where it came from. It's just like out of nowhere, Dave Grohl decided to write this pseudo comedy horror movie and then have him and the entire band sort of star in it. And it just is like, I'm not 100% certain what its actual purpose was for. Like, I don't know if it was meant to like kind of be a like a lead into anything or a lead into a new album. I haven't like seen a new album. I don't think. I mean, I don't really follow the Foo Fighters like that. Like, I love the Foo Fighters as a band, but I'm not saying I go out of the way like for their music. And it's also like this film came out at least a year ago. I watched it sometime over the summer, and I'm just kind of sitting down to talk about it now because, as I've said in previous entries, I'm trying to chop down my list a little bit and break out some things that I have already seen to make my entries for. So, talking about Studio 66, it's just a really interesting story that was written by Dave Grohl, and he wanted to make a movie out of it, and then here it is. It exists in life. And it stars him, and of course the entire Foo Fighters band, and it's got a whole bunch of other characters in it, you know, and other actors and actresses. Um, Jenna Ortega's in it. Whitney Cummings is in it. There's a lot of like people that kind of pop up as different characters. But essentially what the story is Foo Fighters are trying to write a new album because they're playing themselves. They are themselves in the film. So the Foo Fighters are trying to write a new album, and they decide to like rent out this quote unquote haunted. Well, actually, they don't really know 100% that it's haunted, I believe, but they rent out this house that apparently was the house that another really famous rock and roll star wrote in the house and wrote one of the best tracks that they've ever heard. And I don't believe the actual band they're talking about it exists. So it's a story that's just that. So the Foo Fighters exist, but this other band doesn't exist. And it's because they like are suffering from writer's block from writing this new album. They decide to rent out this house that's like a landmark to write the new album. And then they realize it's haunted, and then Dave Grohl gets possessed by a demon who haunts the house and was the demon who possessed the other rock star who wrote in the house. And then he goes on killing all of his bandmates, and then essentially the ones who survive are the ones who kind of redeem his soul and stop the possession. And then the movie kind of ends with them fighting the producer because the producer knew the whole time that it was haunted and didn't tell them. It's such a weird film, and it is enjoyable. I'm not going to say it wasn't enjoyable, but it's almost like, how was this made into a thing? And I'm not trying to say that in a bad light. I'm just trying to say that I don't know Dave Grohl to be this big, like, actor. Like, he is a tremendous musician. He has been involved in so many monumental projects in history, you know, not even just including how, you know, he was one of the three members of Nirvana and how big the Foo Fighters are. But we're talking, he's also part of Queens of the Stone Age and like two other bands that I've never heard of. But he's also done his own side projects where he does all of the instrumentals for. Probot is a band that he does that is just so much fun. And it's just Dave Grohl doing every instrument and all the vocals and all the writing and just having fun with it. It's not a band that he takes seriously, but it is enjoyable to watch. And then there's also had a couple of documentaries for them. It's just so odd that I think the only like film credit he has under his belt is when he played the devil in Tenacious D and the Pick of Destiny. And like, that's it. I don't know any other movies he's ever been in. So for him to just kind of come out of nowhere and just write this script that became this movie, it's just so bizarre for me. But then again, I guess, you know, it's Dave Grohl and he really is like a treasure. Like, he can really do anything he wants. But why this, I don't know. Like, why he didn't write this and then pass it off to somebody else so they could do it, but then he decided to do it himself, you know. I guess it's kind of, you know, pick and choose your battles. Would you have rather this be done by any other group of random people that weren't the actual musicians? Or would you want it to be the actual guy who wrote it and his band, which is a great band? You know, Foo Fighters is a tremendous band. And, you know, rest in peace to the member they lost recently. I want to say close to the end of 2023, if I remember correctly, Taylor Hawkins, who passed away. this is, he's also in this movie because it's filmed obviously way before his unfortunate passing. But I believe he also died shortly after it came out in theaters too. So it was kind of like this weird thing where maybe he didn't get to fully see what this film would have kind of done in, like, what it brought to the table for the Foo Fighters, I guess. Because, not gonna lie, if this is kind of what Dave Grohl is bringing to the table for his writing, I wouldn't be mad if he wrote more and tried to make more. Whether or not he stars in it or whether or not it has anything to do with music or anything like that. It's a fairly decent concept that executed on a sort of campy, maybe B movie level. It kind of reminds me of this movie from the 80s that was also about a band. I just learned it from the Nightmare In Search of Darkness, when they were talking about all the movies from the 80s, that documentary series that Shudder does. They talked about a movie that's kind of similar, where it's this, like, brought from the dead rock and roll guy who comes back and starts murdering people with his guitar. It's also, that movie is also very campy. It's got a guy who's not really a musician in it. And of course, it's kind of viewed as this 80s, like, made for the 80s movie. Studio 66 is kind of that. It's kind of bringing that into this generation. And I don't think it was meant to kind of win any accolades. It was just kind of meant to show that they could have fun with this. And I'm not saying that I don't like it or that I do like it. I'm just saying that I enjoyed it. And I know it's gotten, like, very middle of the ground kind of in the ratings bar. It's probably like, 5 out of 10 stars on pretty much everything. But I think that's because we're in a generation where movies need to do something else than just be fun and be enjoyable to watch. And yeah, this isn't the best movie in the world. This isn't a movie I'm going to go out of my way to watch again. Maybe if I was with somebody who had never seen it before and was just like, what are you talking about? Foo Fighters made a movie. And I'll go, yeah, Foo Fighters made a movie. Here, we're going to watch it. That would be the only other scenario I can picture myself kind of doing more with just the one time I've sat through it. I'm not saying that it's wrong that I'm not going to sit through it. I'm just saying that it's not worth sitting through again for me. And that's just because it's on that level of B-ratedness, I guess you can say, that I don't need to see it more than once because it's not what those 80s movies were. Granted, it's still good enough to watch at least once. It's good enough for the first sit-through to see what Dave Grohl is capable of and to kind of ask yourself, why hasn't he done something before? Why isn't he doing more? I don't know anything else that he's written besides music for Foo Fighters. And again, I don't think this has any correlation with a Foo Fighters album or tour or anything of that nature. It wasn't even like it was anything like anything else they recorded, because all they've recorded is documentaries before. And that's it. So this idea of him being a writer and moving into, say, the movie-esque realm of things, I'm not against it. And if he does, I'll still watch it and see what it is he tries to do. If he tries to keep doing horror, then by all means, keep doing horror if you can write it where it's at least as good as what this story was. I don't think I would see him writing anything else besides this, but then again, I didn't see him writing this to begin with, so, more power to him. Dave Grohl's the man.